Welcome to the Mad Love Your Life show. I'm Mary D, the Joy Catalyst, here to be your host and transformation guide. Mad Love is about the mad, making a difference, and love is what we serve up to live a delicious life. My intention is to help you spark new ideas, break limiting beliefs, and align with your deepest dreams and desires. Get ready for laughter, inspiration, and finding your inner roar in every show. Hello, beautiful friends, and welcome back to another season of Your Life show. I am feeling refreshed and revived and rejuvenated after taking that little, well-deserved pause. And I am super stoked to be bringing you a third season of the show. So thank you for your downloads, your shares, your likes, your reviews, your subscribes, your support on all of the platforms. I appreciate you so much. And if I could reach through the line and give you a hug, I would. I see you, I feel you, and I deeply appreciate you. And I also want you to know that I do personally reply to your messages when you email me or send a DM over on social. I love so much hearing from you. I love hearing about what you've been learning or how you've been encouraged or how you've grown. And my intention for the show was to always be a source of inspiration and healing. And I want to keep that going. If you're brand new here, welcome. I'm your host, Mary D. And this episode is a love note to the person who's done the outer work, but still feels like something is missing inside and that life still feels like it can be out of control. I do hope that we're able to connect energetically through the show and that you leave here better than you came. And, sometimes it can feel like life is happening to us, especially for those of us who love to have the illusion of control. And then things pop up that are unexpected or unanticipated, and it really throws off your vibe. But no matter how bad life shakes you, no matter how much it blends you around and spits you out to dry, there is a universal truth here that's been shared for centuries, also backed by science for centuries. And it's how you are affected by life has nothing to do with the events that are happening, but rather it has to do with how you're responding to what's happening. There is a short quote by Charles Swindoll, and it goes like this: life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it. Everything is energy, and you can transmute what you are perceiving as negative experiences into powerful and inspiring experiences if you choose to. So, from a neuroscience lens, every time you respond to stress in a calm, mindful way, you are actually rewiring your brain. And this is called neuroplasticity. It's your brain's magical ability to recognize and create new pathways. So, yes, you can literally become a new version of yourself through consistent practices. Just like going to the gym and working on your muscles. If you're working on legs and you keep working on legs, you will build those muscles. However, so many of us have been wiring our brain with the opposite of calm, which is anxiety. The road to feeling out of control is paved with stones of anxiety. So today, I want to share with you 3 simple rituals that raised my vibration through one of the most challenging chapters of my life. And it's what I always go back to when I'm feeling that I'm in the challenge. These tools helped me regulate my nervous system. They helped me rebuild my confidence, and they have always helped me reconnect to my joy. And I know they can do the same for you. So some of you have heard my story, but for those of you who haven't, I'm going to give you a bit of that today because part of the story is about one of the hardest seasons of my life. Back in 2016, I was tapped on the shoulder by one of my old friends. I had met him in business back in like 2005. We'd been friends a long time. He was someone I trusted and loved, and we were connected because he used to be a top salesperson in a previous company I was running. And I used to stroke a check to him worth 6 figures every month. He was really good at what he did. And he knew his stuff. He knew his stuff when it came to sales and marketing and duplicatable results, which is what most of us want in our businesses. So when he asked me to partner with him to launch his own company, I knew that we were going to be able to create something extraordinary. And the first few months, we were a super scrappy startup, barely getting by, pulling those pennies together just to make sure that everything was up and running and looking like it should. We also brought on an A team. They were all stars, the all stars of leadership to help us build, grow, and scale this business. And I loved the CEO because he had a abundance mindset. He was not afraid to share the wealth. And the first month that we launched, we did $500,000 in revenue right out the gate. And then the second month came around and we did 1 million. And by the third month, we were doing $1.5 million. And each month we would just see the trend of about 500,000. And we ended up that year at 36 million. It was amazing. Now, what happened though is in about month 4, our merchant accounts, the accounts that take credit cards, they started to break because we were making too much money too fast. And it was actually freaking out the banks. So we had to get creative. And while we were figuring out how to process more payments, we were also scaling our team of 6 salespeople to 150 salespeople. And by the end of that year, again, $36 million in revenue. And most people would go, that is nuts. That's crazy. How did you do it? I want that. But y'all, it was crazy hard. I can say I didn't get much sleep that year. And my problem solving hat was on all of the time. I don't know that I saw my friends and my family as often as I'd like to. And for sure, my health was not the priority that I would say that it is today. Now, from a business standpoint, our courses and seminars, they were selling like hotcakes. And we barely had time to blink. It's safe to say that by 2017, the work brought me personally more material wealth than I'd ever achieved in previous companies. And I was challenged professionally in many ways that were great for me because those I can pass on to future clients that I have now. And one thing I can say is that I had no clue what amount of resilience was going to come out of this chapter of my life. So one day in late 2017, I got this intuitive ping in my gut, and it told me, walk away from this business. At the time I was married, and I shared this with my husband that I'm feeling prompted to let it all go. And I told him I don't have a reason. I just have a prompting. And I know that when that prompting shows up, that it's a good idea to follow it. He was pretty freaked out. He felt like I was being irrational and that walking away was leaving all this money on the table. Like, why would we do that without even knowing what we're doing next? And I definitely allowed that opinion to be part of the process because when you're in partnership, right, there's levels of compromise that happen. But the crazier part of that is also honoring your inner knowing when it really knows, and also having a partner who understands that those prompts, when so strong for you, mean that there's something happening, that there's a sign, and being able to be a container for that level of intuition. So that's another story for another day, a whole nother topic. But back to the story, around that same time, I end up getting diagnosed with breast cancer. And y'all, when you are faced with your mortality, especially when you're least expecting it, that is the time you zoom out. You zoom out on everything going on in your life, and then you zoom back in and you start reprioritizing everything. You reprioritize your feelings, your actions, your thoughts. Everything starts getting an overhaul. And I believe somehow my soul knew that this business was going to come to a close for me. And I could do it by choice or by life. And either one of those, we're going to twist the, twist the rag here and figure out what's coming out. The energy of this chapter coming to a close was something that my soul knew before all of these events actually played out. And 2 weeks out of surgery in early 2018, I get another big and unpleasant surprise when I walk into my local bank attempting to get out some cash, and I'm told that all of my bank accounts, both business and personal, have been frozen. Now, the bank couldn't tell me why because the legal documents were still being uploaded in their system. So I drove home in a bit of a daze, and I get a call from our sales manager informing me that the FTC has come to serve papers on us for this civil lawsuit. And once I get home, thereafter, I get a knock on the door and I'm served a couple of boxes full of documents. And sure enough, it's a civil suit from the FTC. And just like that, quite literally overnight, all of that wealth was gone. It was no longer in my control. It was no longer in in I had no ability to go and extract those funds. It was just done just like that. And I had to sit through this process before and say, wow, like this has to get sorted. But until that happens, now what am I doing? And y'all, nothing screams trials and tribulations like having both your health and your wealth threatened at the same time. So over the course of that year, I was threatened with death when I got the cancer diagnosis. And then I was inviting, death when I got the lawsuit, as death to my business. And one of the things that ran true for me was how I thought I had done everything right. And by right, I mean that I had saved money, I had invested money, I was responsible with money, I knew how to run a business, I understood rules and compliance, and I wasn't out buying Ferraris or living above my means. And for my health, I was eating organic, I was engaging in light exercise, I've got the right teams in place. And right before the cancer diagnosis, I had been working with a doctor to lose weight and get my metabolism in shape because again, a whole, year of plugging away on this business had really put me in a bad spot. So here I get to shed 30 pounds in 3 months, which felt amazing. I went to a lot of self-help seminars and personal development retreats. Even part of our event included personal development and mindset coaching. But nothing challenges your integrity, your resilience, and your sense of self more than threats to your money, your reputation, and your health. And as someone who considers herself a pretty lucky human, I was definitely not identifying with this side of myself in this moment, in this time. Suddenly, I was very called into self reflection, and I had to get very, very honest with myself. They say that the people that show up in life are mirrors for us if we're willing to actually take a look. And I had to look around and wonder, how did I get there? Who are all the players looking at me this entire time? And how can I see those as reflections for myself? Most of 2018 was tied up in healing from breast cancer, holding my breath every time there was a bump or a lump or a pain running through my body and hoping that cancer hadn't returned. And it was caught up in the lawsuit because those are slow and painful. And sadly, one of the worst energy sucks you can experience. I was confused as to what to do next. Was I going back to the business world? Was I going to take a hiatus? Was I going to have to shift my entire identity? I had a lot of questions for myself. And I was fortunate enough to start consulting again, which helped me tackle one of the first questions I had around my own worthiness when it came to business, because my identity was really wrapped up in, what I could do in the business world. It's how my claim to fame for so long. I've run many companies. They've grown from 0 to, 8 figures. But this last one, because of the substantial loss, it really made me question my own business chops. And being able to, again, zoom out, reflect, and then zoom back in, I had to remind myself that one black eye doesn't mean we toss out the whole body. And this lawsuit was a very big black eye. But amongst the people who knew me and trusted me, they didn't care. They knew who I was during a time when I was questioning who I was. And that is the power of community. It's being seen and recognized when you feel like your own vision can sometimes be unclear. And I know that the story I'm telling you sounds like a tragedy, but like most heroes' journeys, it does have a much happier ending. I, of course, ended up having to settle with the FTC, which just means that they take all of my cash and I get to start over with $0 in the bank account and the promise not to violate their terms for the next 20 years. So if anyone listening has more questions about that particular experience, feel free to reach out because there's for sure a lot more to share about those lessons. Perhaps I'll do a show on it one of these days. Always happy to give that to clients and community, particularly if you have any concerns around that in your own business. But to bring us back full circle, I told you this story today because I know that many of you are going through or have gone through some serious shakeups in your life. I recently met a man who was sharing with me that he had done all of these personal growth retreats, the breath work and the Tony Robbins and all the other physically challenging and emotionally challenging type of events, only coming out of them to feel like, is this all crazy and is it all bullcrap? And life has been, shaking him up with divorce and custody battles and losing assets and losing a home and breaking his body down. Like there's so many things that are happening in his life, and he's going through his own chapter of crisis and coping, and how at one point he was coping with alcohol and pot for through escapism. And if you haven't heard that term before in this context, what I'll share with you is that whatever you do to escape from dealing with the reality of whatever pain is showing up in your life, can be seen as escapism. So perhaps instead of having the conversation with your partner that you need to have about growing apart, you decide to stop at the gym for 3 hours every day after work to avoid being home any longer than necessary with your partner so you can avoid the conflict that is waiting for you at home through that conversation. You're crazy ripped, but your relationship is also ripped. It's lacking the bulk that it once had. Many of you have probably watched your kids come home and binge on video games. A lot of times they are just done with all the learning and the school and all of that pressure for the day, and they're ready to just unwind. And so unwinding is one thing, but when we have no control or when we start to binge, do too much, that's when it can become problematic. When we stop doing the things that we also want to get done in our life, and it hinders us from doing those things. So if they're supposed to be doing their chores when they come home, and now the dishes and the laundry don't get done because they're too busy playing video games, that's when it becomes a problem. And parents, I know you can resonate with that, many of you, and some of you are like, my husband does that. So anyway, you might even speaking of, you might even have an unemployed older adult in your life who also is doing this, because it's easier to be busy playing games and winning levels at Mario Kart than it is to face the responsibility of doing what it takes to go out and find the work, especially if you're not feeling worthy or if the market has been challenging, which I know that's been the case here for the last few months. Many people escape their feelings and emotions and responsibilities with things like drugs and alcohol and sex and fill in the blank, whatever the thing is. Sometimes it's sugar, sometimes it's whatever, name your vice, because it can be any of those things. And so you all know, like, alcohol in general, everyone's got their own opinions around it. And my personal opinion is, look, alcohol doesn't have to be a terrible thing, but the overuse of it certainly does lead to terrible things like alcoholism, like liver damage, like drunk driving. So that's what I'm talking about when we've got to think about putting this list of things that we consider vices. Look, sex in itself is definitely not bad. I highly recommend it. But if that's all the focus is on and nothing else gets done, that's where it becomes problematic. So when I was going through this rough chapter of my life, I had to remind myself of who I was. And I remembered to speak to myself kindly and respectfully. I also remembered to regulate my nervous system through breath. And I remembered how much gratitude brought me back to joy, which was my anchor for staying grounded through life's trials and tribulations. And I had a 3-step process, and I am going to share that with you today. I want you to think about your biggest life challenges right now. And what is that thing that's always on your mind that you cannot just will away from your thoughts? Like, what is showing up in your life? What is showing up in your life right now, even though the actual situation was from the past? Because so many of us still live in the past when we have an unresolved issue. They can be daddy issues, mommy issues, sexual abuse, PTSD, lack of confidence. Maybe you were bullied or treated unfairly. Maybe you feel like life has just been unfair in general and you got tossed into a pool of bad luck that you just can't seem to swim your way out of. Well, I want to share with you how to make that shift out of any adversity. And I promise you that if you practice these rituals, they can create new neural pathways in your brain. And since what you think about, you bring about, those thoughts have the power to change the course of your life, because our thoughts can dictate our actions, and our actions are what get us into making choices and moving forward. And even if that choice that you make could be to stay stuck, So if a race car needs a pit stop, they take it, but they don't call it being stuck. They just call it a pit stop. So that team comes in, they change the tires, they change the oil, and then the car is back in the race again. Y'all, it's okay to take your pit stop in life, but if you stay there too long and you stay stuck, that race is going to go on without you. And in this case, it's better for you to take the pit stop and get back in there, even if you're moving slowly, because moving slowly is better than not moving at all. And escapism, as I mentioned before, is real. It is a valid human coping tool. When we're overwhelmed, our brains are looking for dopamine hits, the video games, the alcohol, the overworking, the social doom scrolling. These are all forms of distraction that give our brain a temporary sense of reward. That's why those games on your phone are so addictive, because you're getting these hits and it's creating those rewards. And when we can't get the rewards on the other things that we're trying to do, that's a really easy place to come back to. But healing comes when we feel, not when we numb. And I'm going to say that for you one more time. Healing comes when we feel, not when we numb. According to a study in Frontiers in Psychology, chronic escapism is linked with increased stress, anxiety, and even memory impairment. So, we're going to get into those rituals, but before we do, we are going to take a quick break and then we'll be back and we're going to dive right in, y'all, and let the healing commence. All right, welcome back, y'all. Let's dive in to the rituals. And I call these rituals, you can call them new habits you can form, you can call them routines, you can call them whatever feels good for you. But I call them rituals because I find them to be sacred to my health and wellness and how I'm feeling on the inside, because that reflects how I'm going to feel on the outside. So, first ritual is called Find Your Breath. And it's just what it sounds like. Breath work, by the way, isn't just woo, it is physiology. So, deep, slow breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system. And that's your rest and digest state, which I'm sure many of you recall a little bit from maybe school, learning some of those things. This lowers cortisol, lowers blood pressure, and for sure lowers anxiety. So when we get mindful about our breath, it allows us to clear our mind of any clutter and refocus our attention. So when we focus on our breath, we help regulate our nervous system. When we regulate our nervous system, our whole body relaxes and we create a safe space in which we can lay new ground for how we show up in the world. And you're going to need just a few minutes for this one. It's not overly time consuming. I'm not asking you to meditate for hours. I, I want to give you something bite size so that you can get those couple minutes to just reset and create that new tone for your body. You're going to readjust this vibration so that you're not in this anxious state. And I want it to be something so easy for you to just come back to whenever you feel that swirl of wind that's trying to send a warning bell through your system. And ideally, it's a really beautiful way to start your day and revisit any time of day to bring you back to center. And when I say bring you back to center, bringing you back to a place where you're neutral and not feeling too high or too low, but able to, again, regulate that nervous system. Because when you have a regulated nervous system, you're going to make better decisions. You're not going to make all these super ultra emotional decisions. You're going to be able to get grounded and come from a place of personal power in making decisions and how you think. And those thoughts, of course, become actions. So what you're going to do, ideally not while you're driving in the car, although you can do it with your eyes open, is you're going to sit or lay in a comfortable position. Ideally, you're going to close your eyes and then you're going to literally focus on your breathing, right? Breathing is something we do so naturally and we don't think much about it. But in this case, we're actually going to think about the breath. You're going to take a deep breath into your nose, probably for about 4 beats. All right. And if it feels better to take it through your mouth, you can do that as well. But literally, it's going to be breathing in for a count of 4. And then you're going to hold it at the top for another 4. And then you're going to let it go for a count of 6. So it's in for 4, hold for 4, and out for 6. And when you do that breath cycle of the 4, 4, and 6, you should be able to feel your chest rise and fall as you breathe in and let it go. So I would like you to do that breath work for 2 to 3 rounds. You're going to relax your shoulders. You're going to release any tension you might be holding in your jaw. You're going to breathe in for 4. You're going to hold for 4 and breathe out for 6. So again, it's breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Let it go, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So again, 3 to 5 rounds of that will feel really good. This is actually called coherent breathing, and it's been shown to improve heart rate variability and reduce stress by 20 to 40% in clinical studies. So this has been studied, y'all. So that's why going back to the breath is a great way to start. So whenever life feels out of control, whenever you feel like you're spiraling, we're going to press pause on those thoughts. We're going to get centered and we're going to refocus on that breath. And in just a few minutes, you can get yourself back to a place of relief and rewiring that nervous system. The second ritual I want to share with you, I call Find Your Confidence. So we're going to help you find it by using what's called a mirror mantra practice. And this practice is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to look at yourself in the mirror and actually talk to yourself. And the only rule here is that whatever you say to yourself is going to be positive, uplifting, and acknowledging. So looking in the mirror and affirming your worth activates the mirror neuron system in your brain. And this plays a really key role in empathy and self-perception. According to a UCLA study, positive self-talk has been linked to higher self-esteem and resilience. So an example mantra would be, you are brilliant, you are brave, you were built for this. And I want to encourage you to have fun with it. So you might say something like, good morning, gorgeous. You are super smart. You have what it takes to get the job done. And not only will you get it done, you'll do it with humor, wit, and charm. God is on your side and grandma is cheering you on from the afterlife. So let's freaking go. You might get creative and make a rhyme or a poem out of your mantra so that's really fun and easy to say. You might even make it a song and sing it to yourself. And if you're not sure where to start, just begin with the 3 things that you know you speak negatively about yourself most and speak the opposite. So if you're used to accusing yourself of being anxious, speak about being calm. Speak about being excited. It's also important to feel those feelings in your body as you do them so that you're recreating the awareness in your body of what excitement feels like and what it's called. So any anxiety is getting a makeover, right? You're making over anxiety. You're like, nope, we're going to take off that jacket of anxiety and we're going to give it a makeover and we're going to give it calm. We're going to give it we're going to give it some excitement. Whatever you want to feel is what you want to go for, and you want to be able to feel it in your body. And those are the ways that you rewire what's happening in your body. And it's a great practice because it is used to increase self-awareness, self-love, confidence. By speaking these positive statements aloud while looking at your own reflection, you can reinforce positive self-talk and potentially fully shift your mindset. So for those of you walking around with a mindset that you know needs some work, this is a really, really great practice for you. The third ritual is to find your joy. I would not be the joy catalyst if I didn't have joy as part of these rituals, right? And you guys, joy, it's not frivolous. It is medicine. So when you engage in activities that spark joy, your brain releases dopamine and serotonin, and those help create emotional resilience. Joy anchors you. So make it daily. Ground yourself in gratitude, maybe barefoot in the grass, dancing in your bathroom, whatever lights you up. Neuroscience tells us that gratitude journaling just 3 times a week boosts happiness by 25% and it improves your sleep. And I know so many of you could use an improvement in your sleep. So think about 3 things that you want to be grateful for, and you can do them at the beginning of your day. You can do them at the end of your day. You could do it both times a day, which would really be next level. And particularly if you know that the mindset piece needs a do-over, and if you know that you haven't been getting to a place of true joy in your life. So this is how we rework and retrain our system. So what is a small thing that makes you smile on purpose? Is it making your kids breakfast? Is it making yourself a fancy little latte to start your day? Is it hopping out of bed to your favorite song and having a solo dance party while you brush your teeth? This activity that brings you joy is going to serve as an anchor, and anchors keep you from drifting away from your purpose. And in this case, that purpose would be in finding your joy. So, my personal practice on this is to simply express gratitude, feel the feeling of gratitude in my body, and then just give a smile back to the universe. So, every time something delightful shows up for me, I say to myself, more of this or better. And it's one of my favorite phrases. More of this or better. And I follow it with, I receive it because I do. And that statement alone makes me really happy because I get to fully feel it. I get to say it out loud and I get to actually feel the energetics of receiving it. After that is typically the time I go out and ground in the grass, which is meaning that I walk barefoot on the earth so that all that earth energy runs through my feet and I get to feel the pull of gravity as I connect with the ground and nature. I stretch my body and I speak gratitude into my body and into my day. And this anchoring exercise for me is how I love starting my day. And it's a ritual that starts my day in this aura of joy. So, what a beautiful way to be able to launch myself into another beautiful day that I get to be here. So to recap, the rituals to raise your vibe are to find your breath, find your confidence, and find your joy. I do want to invite you to choose at least one of these rituals, if not all 3 of them, and commit to doing it for 7 days. That's a really small commitment, y'all. But feel into it, try it on. It can only make your life better. So why not give it a go? Write yourself a sticky note, throw it on your mirror so you remember to do the mirror practice. You can write yourself a sticky note and stick it on your ceiling to remind yourself to start and end your day with that gratitude practice. You can also throw a sticky note up or a notification on your phone that says, hey, it's time to breathe. I know, especially if you're getting ready to have maybe a big meeting with someone or a big conversation that you know needs to happen, or if there's something that happens in your life that is just kind of normal anxiety inducing, those gentle reminders of how to stop and breathe and get into that 4-4-6 breath will really, really give your body some nourishment. And before I wrap for today, I want to leave you with this thought to encourage you to have some inner dialogue with yourself. And it's that if you journal, and if you don't, then again, another great opportunity to give yourself a little practice that can really work this out for you. And if you don't journal, then perhaps you think about this and let it be on your mind and let it sit with you for a little bit. And the prompt that I would give you is, what version of me is ready to rise? And what version of me is ready to retire? And I'll say it again. What version of me is ready to rise? And what version of me is ready to retire? So, is there a version of you that's ready to rise into leadership? And is there a version of you that's ready to retire from playing small? So, think about that a little bit. What version of me is ready to rise? And what version of me is ready to retire? And I hope that you get some nuggets from that prompt today and that it feels good and that you can go back to breath and confidence and joy. My friends, you don't have to hustle to be worthy because you already are the magic. So that completes today's show. We will be back with another new episode for you next Thursday. My show has changed from Wednesday to Thursday this season, and I'm excited about being with you here each week. I've got some really great guests lined up for you this season also. In the meantime, if you want more, you can grab more delicious content available on the YouTube channel at the Mad Love Your Life Show. And you can also head over to maryd.com for more gems and to explore how we can connect if there are problems in your life or business that could use some solutions or clarity. So until next time, may abundance always walk beside you. May joy always go before you, and may love always guide and light your path. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. We air live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Bold Brave TV. We hope to see you back next week. For more ways to connect with my guests, content, programs, and retreats, just head over to www.maryd.com and subscribe. That's MARYDEE.com.